have always gotten a lot of questions on how we raise our kids living on such a frugal budget and a frugal lifestyle. My 18-year-old has recently moved out, and I thought now would be a great time to discuss how she was able to transition into a fully functioning, financially independent adult, even in today's economy, even with all of the economic pressures that we have today. I know it's hard to function even, as a almost 40-year-old adult with lots of life experience. And I don't think that all kids need to move out at 18. I don't think any kid needs to move out at 18 unless they want to. But my goal as a parent is to make sure that my kids are autonomous, responsible, independent people who are able to do the things that they want. And if that means going to college independently from us, or getting a job in a different city, or moving in with some of their friends, and testing out the waters of being an independent, financially responsible person, then that is what I want them to do. I want them to be able to travel. I want them to be able to do all the things that they want to do without having those financial barriers. So many young adults today feel like they cannot move out and live on their own, and they feel like they have to stay with their parents. And that is not a healthy feeling to have, to not have a choice. It is completely fine to choose to stay with your parents, save some money, go to college, build up your resume, savings account, all of that stuff. But you have to know you have a choice. And that means also having a choice of being financially independent, making your own money, having your own savings account, paying your own bills, and doing the things that you want to do. As kids become adults, especially in today's economy, it is really important for them to know that they can go out and take risks and try things and grow as a person, but also have their family to fall back on, to come back to be that safety net if they need it. It is important for us as parents to teach them all the skills that they need to know before they go out on their own. And when they do go out on their own, to know that I'm still here to help them make decisions, to, be there if necessary, and to have a space for them with me if they ever need to come back. So anyway, whether your kids are 18 or 30, at some point they are going to go out on their own and become independent adults, hopefully, and they're going to need to know certain skills. So let's talk about what I've taught my kids and when I started teaching them these skills so that they can have the knowledge to be able to take care of themselves. I'm not always going to be there. I will be there as long as I'm alive, but at some point I could die. It could be tomorrow. It could be in hopefully 50 years. You never know. So my job as a parent is to set my kids up to be capable human beings, to be capable women, especially being a woman in today's world. I want them to have choices. I want them to be able to do this on their own and to never feel like they cannot be an independent person capable of taking care of themselves no matter what the situation is. So the number one skill that kids need is they need to know how to make an income. You have to have money in order to pay bills and be financially responsible, to save money, all of that stuff. So what we do with our kids is we encourage them to start making money very early through their own business, some sort of skill that they have to sell something or do a service for somebody so that they can make some money. And for my oldest daughter, that has looked like, when she was younger, she did a lot of art, creative type stuff, crocheting. She crochets clothes, animals, and she sells them online. She has gone to thrift stores and upcycled clothes, resold them online, and has always made several $100s a month starting when she was 11 years old, just doing that. So starting at 11, she has had money that she has been responsible for, and that has taught her so many skills not only just how to make money, but also what to do with that money when she has it. When she turned 16 and was kind of old enough to go and get an outside job, she went out and got an employed job where she was working for somebody else. She's had several of those jobs over the years. It's important to have multiple streams of income. It's important to know how to work under somebody else, even if you're going to be an entrepreneur, even if you're going to have your own business. It's still good to work with other people in that work environment and also suffer a little bit in that work environment and know how low-paying jobs work and the restaurant industry and all of these service industries that you start out with, so that you don't want to keep those for the rest of your life, because there are better things out there, and you need to have that experience in order to move up in life a little bit. So she has been making money for a very long time. And in doing that, I have taught her how to budget her money. All of the money that she's made has been hers, and I help guide her on what to do with it. I have taught her about saving money, about spending money, and I have allowed her to make mistakes with money where she spends money on maybe like she blows all of her money and then she doesn't have it in the future, like something she wants to do coming up. It is important for kids to fail and make mistakes, and that is how they learn. It is good for them to learn delayed gratification, to save money and buy something bigger. It is important to teach kids how to budget, bills, food, fun, savings, like all of those things are categories that I have worked with her on. She's been paying her cell phone bill for a very long time. As she started making money, I have gradually had her become more responsible for herself and her expenses as they worked out. So she has become financially independent as a transition for over the years. Teaching kids about food. Food is very expensive. Getting them involved in meal planning, going to the grocery store, budgeting a meal prepping, and knowing like what foods are healthy and what are some like budget foods. Like, they have been very involved in our meal planning and cooking, grocery shopping, like knowing how much things cost. I have had my kids cooking food with me and then have them responsible for cooking meals for themselves for years, like really since they have been, it's a transition as they get older, but they have been able to make themselves full meals, meal plan their whole week, help me with all of that and do it themselves for, many years. A lot of kids leave home and they don't know how to cook anything. They don't know what foods are nutritious and cheap and what foods are, like how to cook, how to put foods together, cooking from scratch. All of that is going to save your young adult a lot of money. And then with food, it's also really important for them to know how expensive eating out is and how much cheaper it is to eat at home. And they can't just DoorDash food all the time because that is so expensive. And how much cheaper it is to go and buy a week's worth of groceries and save. You could buy a whole week's worth of groceries for one DoorDash meal. If you are one single person, you can get a whole week's worth of groceries for one meal on DoorDash. It's crazy. Next this is not really financial, but it is just teaching them basic self-care and allowing mistakes and lessons learned. Proper hygiene, making them responsible for showering, doing laundry, how much screen time they're going to have, and noticing when they've had too much and being responsible for cutting back on the amount of screen time that they are getting, how much sleep they're getting, and letting them fail and stay up way too late and be super tired the next day so that they know the side effects of that and can self-correct before they get out of the house. If they have a job to go to or somewhere to be, making them responsible for setting an alarm, getting up on time. These are things that like so many 18-year-olds don't know how to do, and it makes the transition into adult life harder because they're having to learn all of these things all at one time. Next is a biggie, and that is housing. That is probably the most expensive step in moving out and becoming an adult, is trying to find affordable housing. And that is going to vary by location. I am going to say in some areas it is really not affordable with a low-paying job to find housing. There are options though. One of those is to relocate to a new area. If you are going to college, you can get housing in or around the college, particularly with roommates. When you are splitting not only rent, but also utilities with people, it makes it a lot less expensive. There's a website called Furnished Finder where you can rent a room out in somebody's house. You can do that with Airbnb, but I find Furnished Finder to be less expensive. And you know, like my daughter moved out with roommates. She has 2 other roommates, and her housing expense, all paid for, including utilities, everything, is $400 a month. There are affordable options if you look hard enough and long enough. Next is transportation, getting to and from places. We live in a very car-centric society, and it is necessary to have a car depending on your location again, but that is something that you can think about when you're choosing where you're going to move to, is if you need to own a vehicle, because vehicles are really expensive. And especially when you're 18 years old, like car insurance is expensive for an 18-year-old. So, you know, having a vehicle, buying it outright versus a car loans are expensive. You got your car insurance, maintenance, gas, all these things add up to be really expensive. But if you were to move somewhere where there was more public transportation, that might save you some money, and you don't have to buy a car and have all of that transportation expenses. So it is important to not only know how to drive and all that comes with that, but also how to use public transportation, how to get from point A to point B. Public transportation is confusing, especially depending on what city you live in, you know, knowing what bus to get on and what to do if you get on the wrong bus. And, you know, there's buses and trolleys and just tons of different types of transportation. It is important to have experience with that. Also, knowing how to use Uber and Lyft can be very helpful in an emergency situation. I think all teenagers should know how to use Uber and have it on their phone in case they're, you know, teens don't always make great choices and they might put themselves in a dangerous situation. It's important for your kid to know how to get back home, whether they're living with you or away from you, if they can't get behind a wheel or they can't get in the car with their friends. Teach them how to use public transportation, Uber, to keep themselves safe. Bank account. We got our kids a bank account at 16, and they have been responsible for their money, their debit card, you know, checking their balance. They have a checking account and a savings account, so they are able to, you know, save as much money as they want to, spend as much money as they want to, and maintain that. They also have bills that are attached to their checking account, and so they've been paying their phone bill, their car insurance, all of that from their account. They've been responsible for that for a couple years. It is pretty important, if you're wanting to move out, to have at least 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up in case of an emergency. If there is a family to fall back on, then you can have less money in savings. But if you do not have any fallback, then saving as much money as possible is very, very important. The vast majority of Americans do not even have $1,000 in their savings account. They're living paycheck to paycheck. So if you are a young adult that is able to move out of your house with 3 to 6 months of expenses, you are way ahead of the curve and you are gonna be okay. That is why it was really important for my kids to start making money early so that they were able to save as much money as they wanted to as quickly as possible. Next is when you move out on your own. I am almost 40 years old and I have never ever bought a new piece of furniture ever. I have always gone to Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist back in the day, or, gotten stuff free from friends and family, garage sales. You can furnish your entire house for very, very little money if you just buy some gently used furniture. It's kind of like buying a car. Like, you don't have to buy a brand new car. You could, even if you want a brand new car, just get a car that's like 2 years old, a year old, and it is going to decrease the value so much. You're going to save so much money. So even if you want some like new furniture, there are tons of people on Facebook Marketplace who are way wealthier than I am and just want to redecorate their house. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with the furniture that they're getting rid of. And you can have it for like new at like 80% off. So these are not the only things that we have done, but this is a big portion of them. I would love to know how you guys are handling teaching your kids about money, especially in today's economy. Things are realistically much, much more difficult for our kids than they were for us growing up. I know that when I moved out of my parents' house, I was able to rent a whole house for $550. And I was making minimum wage, and it was still, like 30% of my income. And that is almost not possible now. My daughter was very lucky to find somewhere that was very affordable. Good for her. She found it on her own with her friends. And then let me know if you have any questions about this or want me to expand any more on this topic, if this is something that you guys are interested in. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time.